So immense was the indigenous population of the Andes that the Spanish seemed to think at first that the supply of labour was infinite and inexhaustible. Whole valleys, once filled with thriving villages and hundreds of thousands of native people, were picked clean of human life. But at last the friars and some settlers began writing to their king in Spain, asking him to use his influence to moderate the exploitation, lest the absence of any Indians, a prospect that was beginning to seem imminent, served to shut their enterprises down. The crown consented. On Christmas Day in 1551, the king decreed that henceforth all Indian labour in the mines must be voluntary. No matter how oppressive the ruling class, so far in the history of mankind, they've always been stuck with the working class, having to rely on us to produce food and work the mines and do the administrative work. We've always had this one leverage of ours. No matter how evil the regime, it simply had no choice but to provide peasants with bare minimum subsistence. This was basic common sense. Otherwise, the regime would collapse. The special transferees resort to eating all kinds of surrogates, roots, herbs, dogs, cats, dead animal carcasses. In a constant search for food, they commit thefts from the nearby farms, and as a result, the number of thieves lynched by the peasants increases significantly. All things considered, none of the economic objectives have been achieved, and all plans for the current year are seriously compromised. We, therefore, order the immediate cessation to the mass deportations of peasants. No matter how bad the dictatorship, it always had to reckon with the economic effects of its actions. There is something lurking on the horizon, however, that can change this age-old equation. A popular topic in Silicon Valley is talking about what year humans and machines will merge, or, if not, what year humans will get surpassed by rapidly improving AI or a genetically enhanced species. Most guesses seem to be between 2025 and 2075. This probably cannot be stopped. As we have learned, scientific advancement eventually happens if the laws of physics do not prevent it. First, let us postulate that the computer scientists succeed in developing intelligent machines that can do all things better than human beings can do them. In that case, presumably, all work will be done by vast, highly organized systems of machines, and no human effort will be necessary. Let us stop and think, for a moment, what this means for us. What happens once the machines surpass us in every ability? Kaczynski outlines two possibilities, among others. If the elite is ruthless, they may simply decide to exterminate the mass of humanity. If they are humane, they may use propaganda or other psychological or biological techniques to reduce the birth rate until the mass of humanity becomes extinct, leaving the world to the elite. Is it far-fetched? One could counter that, while in the past, even fairly recent past as in the Soviet Union, the ruling class did often subject us to enslavement and horrible treatment. More recently, however, they seem to have started to see the light, apparently. The evil empire, as the US President Ronald Reagan once called the Soviet Union, did fall. Oppressive regimes are on the back foot. Capitalism is lifting societies out of poverty. Working conditions are improving. We're allowed more freedom than we ever used to. What's the reason behind it, though? Why did the Soviet Union collapse? Was it because its rulers finally realized that they were the evil empire and decided to give up? Or was it rather because the liberal system in the West simply turned out to be more efficient? Luckily for us, we've always had this one unshakable law of human nature on our side. A slave makes for a bad worker. But no matter how they huffed and puffed and broke all their nails on the crags, no matter how they corrected the plan fulfillment sheets 20 times over and whirled them down to holes in the paper, the Gulag archipelago did not pay its own way, and it never will. And here's why. The first and principal cause was the lack of conscientiousness of the prisoners, the negligence of those stupid slaves. Not only couldn't you expect any socialist self-sacrifice of them, but they didn't even manifest simple capitalist diligence. All they were on the lookout for were ways to spoil their footgear and not go out to work, how to wreck a crane, to buckle a wheel, to break a spade, to sink a pail, anything for a pretext to sit down and smoke. A free worker is a more efficient worker. Could that be the real reason behind the freedoms we're enjoying? Is this basic human characteristic what's been saving us all along? A simple calculation on the side of the elites, rather than kind-heartedness? If that's the case, what does it tell us about our future once we are no longer needed? Once the machines have advanced far enough to replace us? What will be our ruler's move then? Are Ted Kaczynski's predictions realistic? What happens once we lose our leverage? Let's finish by mentioning the third possibility Kaczynski outlined. If the elite consists of soft-hearted liberals, they may decide to play the role of good shepherds to the rest of the human race. They will see to it that everyone's physical needs are satisfied, that all children are raised under psychologically hygienic conditions, that everyone has a wholesome hobby to keep him busy, and that anyone who may become dissatisfied undergoes treatment to cure his problem. Of course, life will be so purposeless that people will have to be biologically or psychologically engineered. These engineered human beings may be happy in such a society, but they most certainly will not be free. They will have been reduced to the status of domestic animals.